Hi, Bobby. Welcome to the Ticket Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We get to interview you today instead of having you host. So today we're going to be chatting about people's first 30, 60, and 90 days in this new AI first CS world. And you wrote a really good LinkedIn post recently about this and the importance of just getting started with automation and support. Can you describe what that first step looked like for your company implementing AI and why you chose to start with an AI chatbot to begin with?
Yeah, the non-exciting answer was that was the first AI product that we built. But nonetheless, I do think it's a great starting point, starting off with an AI chatbot, AI agent. We use those terms somewhat interchangeably, but this is a familiar to support leaders, right? Like even before generative AI, support leaders, we were used to this idea of using like if-then bots, or if it looks like X, then have a bot answer Y. Bots in general have been around the support space for a while. So I feel like it's a great place for people to get started. And then, yeah, it's also just a really familiar thing for customers as well. There have been maybe in the old days some negative perceptions to bots, but especially again over the last 18 months with ChatGPT being out, users, especially tech users, they're not only going to be familiar with seeing some sort of AI bots, but they're going to be expecting it at this point. So I think for those two reasons, it's great to get started with the bot. And then lastly, like the AI chatbot, it's a familiar space. Like most teams they already have a help center, they have some sort of knowledge base, and between the bot, the knowledge, that's really all you need to get started. So
yeah, and absolutely, and I think it was probably the most exciting area to start with. So in the first 30 days, you tested AI with a small trusted segment of your customer base. And can you tell me a little bit about the criteria you used to make that determination and how you came up with this test during the initial phase?
Yeah, so I imagine this is going to look, different for all customers. But for us here at Intercom, when we were thinking about all the different slices and cuts of our customer base, the front runner for us was like starting with our early stage, our startup plan customers. And when we thought about that segment, we're like, these are customers that are going to be bullish on AI. They're going to be open to this new idea of technology, and an easy group for us to kind of get started with. I was chatting with a customer at a recent panel. They were an ed tech customer, and they had a similar philosophy. They were like, we're going to start with our students. These are, again, people that are used to technology, know what's going on here, are going to be open to it. So that was one reason. I think a second reason for us was like, candidly, like it was a lower risk. No offense to our customers on our starter plan, but these are people like we heavily discount their plan. So it felt like a bit like there wasn't going to be revenue risk for us. And it was less risky for them. These are customers that don't have like a 100-person support team or thousands of cases coming into their Intercom instance, impacting their journey. And so this was something we're like, let's kind of get started with them. So yeah.
That's great. And I like the way you kind of articulated this idea of working backwards from those personas who are most likely to have a positive experience when you get started. And can I ask some of the insights you got from that initial testing in the first 30 days?
We learned a ton in the first 30 days. The first one was just like, holy shit, this is way better than we ever imagined. We knew this was going to be a big shift in technology compared to our previous spots, but I recall thinking like, okay, this is going to take a lot of, I've been paying attention to ChatGPT. This is going to take a lot of the easy things, but I was not prepared for it to take a lot of the medium, like hard things as well. Like this wasn't just, if it's in an article or macro, but to see the power of these AI bots synthesizing things together and coming up with some pretty creative, like troubleshooting steps to solve customers' issues, and all of that netting out to a really high resolution rate, even out the gate was like the biggest moment. And then I think like practicality, like we also started to see just like where we could improve, like what the content, like whether that was content gaps, areas of our help center or our knowledge base that like needed additional knowledge. And we were able to kind of go in and start filling in the gaps that way.
Nice. Okay. And then so some of this, I think, is the initial setup of the bot and making sure that we had this massive help center of content, which fortunately for us, we already did. And that's what Finn linked to from the get-go. But we've all talked, and I think you've emphasized the necessity of like feeding this AI beast. Could you talk a little bit more about how Intercom approached building the knowledge base for this AI first experience, and how'd you collaborate with other teams like product, for example, to maybe sort that out?
Yeah, so I would say like what was cool for us at Intercom was like, obviously as a whole company, we were building Finn, our AI agent. But I feel like this could apply to all companies where like try to get your whole company to go all in on this. So not only were we investing heavily on the CS side, we had teammates stepping out of the inbox, dedicating that out of the inbox time to writing out new help center content or rounding out the content that we normally only had listed internally. We're like, let's make this public. Let's get it all in the help center. So we were investing as a CS team, but as a whole company, we also got our product teams heavily involved. And we're like, you build this product, you have the vision for this product, go take a look at this help center collection and add in things that might be missing or where it could be explained better. And so what was cool about that was it was labor across the board, but it also really put the whole company arm in arm, being bought into this, like our AI agents performance. And it went from just being like a CS metric to an entire company metric. So that was that's like one area, I would say don't be afraid to knock on those doors and get your product teams involved, because it's going to help it's going to help that AI agent performance, and it's going to help them with their product area as well.
Yeah, and I have to imagine the fact that it was like built from the ground up, knowing that we needed this really good content with the bot made a huge difference. And so that's really good context in the first 30 days. And then I imagine, as we all know, post 30 days, there's this kind of maintenance component, and then you want to keep building on knowledge. What are some of the challenges that you ran into in filling content gaps or collaborating with other teams in general with this new knowledge first world?
Yeah, so one of the areas that we tried to do for quality, would be my advice to folks, is to just get started. Like, even if it's a manual process, for us, again, this was all last year, it was really manual at first, just pulling the sample size of conversations and going through and looking at like what was the content gaps, or like where was the experience not as great. Fast forward to today, like this is my Intercom pitch, like you should be using a tool and product that's going to have better reporting to be able to drill into some of these different areas, whether that's where the AI agent didn't resolve something, maybe the AI agent resolved it, but it's more of like a soft resolution. The AI gave it an answer and then the customer didn't continue on with the ticket. Going through and making sure it's like, did it solve their question or did the person just get tired and walk away? So reviewing that. And then also now having something like AI agent CSAT. So being able to drill into those star eyes, happy ratings, or the unhappy CSATs to understand, again, why was the user rating it that way? Was it the wrong answer? Did it ask too many follow-up questions to get to that? So that's a big area, I think, for diving into quality. And again, this is only going to continue to kind of come full circle as like AI continues to improve and get better. Support leaders will be able to lean on AI to really do that quality assessment, kind of for us and surfacing the insights automatically. So excited to see us continue to move into that future.
Yeah, and I think obviously getting started with AI first, you had a really good focal point to start, which was the bot. But of course, later on, as you get to progress 61, 90 days and beyond, I think you mentioned this need to pivot and adapt the AI strategy overall. So maybe can you talk a little bit about a situation where you had to pivot significantly and that improved either the customer experience or maybe your internal teams working?
Yeah, the biggest one that comes to mind was our triage flow. And so this is like somewhat related to AI, but we were so excited about launching our AI agent, and we built this whole triage flow. If the AI agent wasn't able to solve it, using our triage flow to gather information, and like the AI chatbot was able to like pull from an article collection, and based on that, we would say, okay, like we're going to feed it into this like series of triaging and ask these follow-up triage questions. And that like seemed really cool and magical at first. We're like, this is saving our teammates time later down the road. We're able to hit the ground running. But, I think we were chatting about this in a one-on-one, I think, what was that, last week? And like, I think that all of that made a lot of sense at the time, but fast forward today, I feel like some of the things that we've been learning is that like that flow in hindsight, it's probably a bit too long, right? And like, we need to work on fixing that. Like, we always have started our customer journey with some sort of form of a bot, but I think we underestimated that. Like, if someone's gone through some of this back and forth with Finn already, to follow up with like a bunch of additional questions, like it can feel cumbersome. There can be that fatigue kind of pushing people over the line with that experience piece. So that's one area that, like, again, we want to layer on as much as we could up front. And I think now, like, pulling back some of those layers again, just to make it a little less effort, a little more seamless. And it's like, hey, if the AI can't do it, let's just ask them like very select key questions. And then at that point, get you to the human. Because the last thing that we want is for folks to feel like we're trying to stop them from talking to a human, that we're deflecting them with all these additional questions. That's definitely not the case. So that's one area that we're looking at.
Yeah, and much of this really focused on the FinBot itself. I think you've also talked about the importance of going beyond that at the very beginning of this podcast and how we can use AI to add value throughout the journey. If you were kind of thinking about how we've done that, are there any examples of places where we've been able to improve our strategy in the customer journey beyond just the Fin chatbot?
Like with AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for anybody who missed it, we recently did a big announcement for our new product called Fin AI Copilot. And this is a whole new product that's using AI for your teammates, like your internal agents who are working the queues, working in the help desk. And what's really cool about this, just like as it sounds, this is a nifty little Copilot right in the right-hand side panel that as you're going through cases, as you're going through these tickets, you have it there to be able to reference and ask questions. And it's pulling from a variety of resources. Most magically, it's pulling from all of your past conversations, all of your past tickets. So you're gaining and learning from your past work. It's also able to pull from any sort of internal knowledge base that you have, or even some other external contents like we're playing around with right now, like pulling from select Slack channels and stuff. So what any support person who's known the pain of having to like go and check 8 or 9 different places to verify a question, you're like, I'm 90% sure this is how it works, but like in the last 24 hours, has something changed? You can now have this like magical Copilot right there and in your inbox to ask it that question, and it's going to give you the answer. Just like the AI agents, it's going to like synthesize things across all of this different content sources. So it might even offer you a new answer that like you hadn't even been thinking of. And it's giving you this like single place and single resource. So that's like one area that we obviously at Intercom are super excited about. But for me, as you know, the human support leader, getting to see our technical support specialists and technical support engineers use that, and to just like it's one of the few tools we've rolled out where there wasn't a lot of change management. People like started using like, oh, like this is way easier. This is great. Again, this is a sanity check, or it gets the ball rolling for my triaging. Has been a really, really cool area to see. So I'm excited for that to be getting in more of our customers' hands.
Absolutely. And it was such a fantastic reception too, like across the board, just positive energy from using it. So it's good to see that that's still the case today. And I think this is a great segue into the last question, which is really around customer service roles in AI. So you've talked a little bit about how Copilot's helping people in their traditional support roles, but how do you see the roles themselves evolving, and what are some of the upcoming initiatives for this that you're excited about?
Yeah, we've been thinking about this for our own human support team. And, you know, I've talked about this maybe on one of the last podcasts, but we've done a few different exercises that I think any support leader who's going down this road of AI, they need to be thinking about for their human support team. The nature of the work is fundamentally changed at this point. Again, like I'm very proud of our 40% plus like resolution rates, but what that means then is that the stuff that's coming through to the humans, it's either extremely complicated or it's things that are really nuanced to that particular customer setup, or it's like stuff that's brand new, right? Like it's our team woke up and product shipped a bunch of changes and now we're figuring it out on the fly. And so it's maybe not in the help center quite yet, right? So that type of workload is new, it's more complex, and like that has a big cascade effect. Like we've had to go look at, you know, the targets that we had for our handling time. We've had to increase those. Like we know it's going to take longer than what it used to. The amount of cases that people are going through, we've lowered that target for them. And then even the makeup of the role, whether that's things like the title for your role or the skills and competencies that you're interviewing for. We did this big exercise with our HR team where we kind of recategorized our whole customer support team to be indexed and kind of leveled on a higher, more complex, higher tier troubleshooting. So that had a bunch of HR stuff to go along with it and things like pay to look at. All of those things are things, you know, you're going to have to look at. And then lastly, I'll add on, whether it's in your human support role, like I feel like those bottom, what was once like the entry rung on the ladder is now disappearing. Again, this is work that's like what was once a tier 1 is now being handled by bots. And so we went through the exercise of adding some additional tiers to the ladder on the top end. You know, we want these career style professional CS folks that want to stick around, that are able to have, thanks to career path and goal set too. So we added some additional positions at the top of the ladder. And again, I think that's again where the direction of human support's responsibilities and roles are going to be going in the future.
Great, Bobby. Well, I mean, I think it's especially interesting how quickly this has all changed in the last year in particular. So thanks for going through all these questions, and thanks for joining us, and thanks everyone for listening.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Anthony. Take care, brother.